yeah, I'd rather not get insurance. I'd rather be self-insured. I'd rather put this money aside and actually save for this, or it's my kids' responsibility, or it's my spouse's responsibility. I did all this all these years. When in reality, they're just trying to be very glib. They're just trying to do anything they can to avoid talking about it and thinking about it, because they know the responsibility ultimately should fall on them. So they're just trying to find a way to derelict this duty. Well, thanks for joining us this week on the weekly Q&A. I am joined by Joan Rosales.
Hi, everyone.
Our head of contracting, or contracting director. I'm Albert Laub, filling in for John Background, who's out of town today, but I just want to get this thing started by just going over a couple of announcements before we actually get to the questions. Any announcements on the contracting side?
On the contracting side, the only announcement I want to say is we do have Mutual of Omaha available in NLC now. So we have a couple of carriers there. You guys can submit American Amicable, and also Mutual of Omaha. The remainder of the carriers will either be available for you guys in SureLC when you guys begin contracting, or you guys can go ahead and request the carriers you guys need through HCMS.
And just to refresh the memory for all the people that maybe haven't seen previous questions, or, what's the difference? What's NLC and what's SureLC? What are they?
Yeah, so SureLC is basically a third-party platform that we use to be able to gather all of the agent's information. And then that information gets sent over to home office, and home office goes ahead and sends that information over to the carrier. So now next level contracting, NLC is going to be, or it is FFL's internal SureLC platform, I want to say. This is something that the internally we go ahead and we receive all of your information, and then FFL directly goes ahead and submits that over to the carrier. So now we are cutting out SureLC, the third party, from being able to gather this information and send it out for you guys. Now we're able to send it out ourselves.
Okay. So, for both of those different platforms with NLC and SureLC, I mean, a lot of times agents are thinking like, why do I need to get my voided check, and why do I need to get all this stuff filled out? It's actually to your guys' benefit. You guys may not even recognize it, because everyone comes in, they want to start making money. They want to start putting themselves in a position to start, start their business, right? So there's actually this process actually helps you as an agent when you guys are first starting off, rather than individually doing every single contract for every carrier that you're about to contract with. What you're essentially doing is you're putting all your information into SuranceBay, and then now we have NLC, which is our own proprietary contracting site. That's going to, so when you upload your information onto these, you're going to fill in your basic information. You're going to upload your voided check, driver's license, voided check,
your E&O,
driver's license. I mean your insurance license, all that good stuff, right? And then the thing is, what's going to happen is they're going to gather all this data, and then basically create a rubber stamp with it, and then stamp it for every carrier that participates in that particular platform. So it's helping you in the long run. So I mean, yeah, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. It seems like for most agents, when they start off and they're like, why do we have to go through this?
Yeah,
it's actually, you don't want to go through the other route, the alternative, and actually have to fill it all one by one. So just so you guys can kind of create that framework of how this all fits into what you guys are doing, which really isn't that important and on the back end, because once you're contracted, you're contracted and you're good to go.
Yeah, once you guys create your SureLC profiles and your next level contracting profiles, you guys are not going to have to touch that again. All your information should be uploaded when you guys start to create it. So it should just work pretty seamlessly in terms of getting new contracts with carriers.
Right. But actually having done that too, it's like when you need to apply for new carriers, when you have new requests that come out, or let's say FFL signs up with partners with another carrier, we have a new contract, then they can basically just go in and they'll apply that information in there. You just do your final signatures and you can upload that and send that out. So it'll save you a lot of time in the long run. So just if you set it up properly up front, then you don't have to worry about going back and doing things over and over again. So it's all a little bit of a process, but anything that's new, you got to learn how to do it, and it is what it is. So instead of complaining about it, just try to figure and try to understand it. Another announcement I wanted to make was with carriers, typically across the industry, you don't get paid until the client makes a payment, right? So that's called on settle.
Okay.
So that's actually a change. So some carriers have already been doing it, but for the most part, most carriers, they want to secure a first payment because that's actually when the contract's actually enforced anyway. Because the thing is, there's two parties. If just because you apply for a policy, they could approve you, but it's not actually active until they actually receive a payment from the client for the first initial premium. So that's going to be one of the changes coming up very soon. I don't know exactly the specific date, but you should anticipate it coming up anytime soon. It could be as quick as tomorrow, but every carrier is changing it to they're going to be paying on settle, no longer paid on approval. Previously, for a couple of carriers, they were paying on approval, which means you can do the application for the client, they get approved there on the spot, and then you get paid within a day or two. Now, the thing is they're going to, if you do a post-dated policy, which means they're going to draft in a month or so, which generally I'm going to explain why it's generally not a good business practice anyway. But they're not going to pay out the advance until they receive the first payment. So that's something that you guys should all be aware of, something you guys should be conscious of, because it's, number one, it's going to help you protect you guys as agents to minimize the amount of chargebacks, because you can sign somebody up, like, hey, I'm all in, but let's get it. I don't have the money until next month. And then you can draft me on the 15th of next month, right? And then the thing is, they got approved for it. Otherwise, you got paid your commission, but a month comes by and they're like, oh, you know what? Hey, I spent all my money the previous month. I didn't have money at the time we signed up for the application. I don't have that $100 a month or $50 a month or whatever it may be. I don't have that money. Their spending habits typically don't change that drastically from one month to the next, right?
Yeah.
So the following month, they could find themselves in that same pickle. They may not be able to afford that initial premium, and then boom, you get a chargeback. So this is to everyone's benefit to be able to do it this way, because in reality, no one's really earning their full commission anyway, because we get advanced 75% up front, right? So you get your annual premium times by your commission rate times by 75% advance. 75% essentially you're getting paid 9 months worth of business that you didn't do yet, because all you collected was 1 month, right? And then obviously the remaining 25% gets paid out in months 10, 11, and 12 as the clients continue to maintain their policies. That's what's called trailing commissions or residuals. And then for final expense and permanent policies, you get paid 5% each year after that. So that's how that's going to work now. But as far as going back to how do you prevent this from happening, the thing is, I think we've ran into a lot of situations. We talked to some agents that maybe their chargeback levels are a little bit higher than what they should be. And typically when you talk to them, you'd be like, hey, so why are you post-dating so many of these cases? Or, statistically showing, I think like 70% of chargebacks come from policy that never got a chance to draft in the first place. Right.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it could be because an agent just used poor judgment initially. Maybe they thought too much about how much money do I need to make right now? So I'm gonna push this sale through, whether this client can actually afford it or not. And if they can't afford it, then it really does no one any good, because the carrier doesn't have another policy on his books. The client is not covered, and then you got paid for something that you didn't really earn.
Yeah.
Which means it will result in a chargeback. Now it kind of puts everything in into flux. So the way that you want to avoid this situation as much as you can is, in talking to a lot of agents, when I ask them their process, they're just like, oh yeah, I tell them up front, we're like, hey, we don't know if you qualify. We're just going to try to put this through. And then you never really talk about the specific date and when it's what's supposed to be drafted. You don't make it very clear that it's going to be occurring on this date for the initial draft on the same day, as going to reoccur on the same day every single month. And they're going to continue to get drafted on that amount. So I think we can all do a better job of being more clear about making sure that they understand when they're supposed to be drafted for the initial draft, and that when they're going to continue to get the recurring draft going forward. Now, one way that has always worked is for a lot of agents, especially newer agents, you could run some more chargebacks than needed if you make it too open-ended for them, you make it too available for them to push out their draft dates. So we do our live dials, and if you guys are not on, it's a great resource to have. You can listen to other people dial, and more importantly, if you unmute yourself on these live dials, other people can hear what you're saying, then they can kind of give you some feedback. If you're muted the entire time, you don't have your camera on, no one knows what you're saying, and you may not be getting the results that you want, but no one knows how to help you because no one knows what you're doing. So if we go back to the part about how do we better prepare clients the initial draft. This has always worked for me. Okay, so I'll run through the script, get everything going, present a couple options for them, and then at the end I'll be like, which plan works best for you? And then they'll tell me, and then I'll be like, okay, so first of all, we can't make a decision today, but the carrier is the one that makes the decision. So let's put through the application, and I'm gonna go through the application step by step. When it gets to the bank draft information part of it, obviously we gather their bank information, we input that data, and then I'll say, okay, this is what I personally say. So I'll say, all right, so the first draft is going to come out within the next 24 to 48 hours. After that, what day is today? 19th or 20th. It's President's Day, which is, I don't understand how that's a holiday, but it's the 20th. So if I'll say, okay, so the first draft is going to come out within the next 24 to 48 hours, then each month after that, it's going to come out on the 20th of each month after that. Are you good with that? Yeah. So I never presented the options, because sometimes on live dials you hear people say like, yeah, you can push this out as far as you want. We don't have to draft right now. Like, we don't take any money. You can draft it a month later from now. And you also have a 30-day free look period. You can cancel it if you want. Like, you're begging the client to cancel now at this point.
Yeah.
At this point, like, why are you even like offering it to the client?
Yeah. Or you're giving them an excuse to like not get it now or not get covered. Oh.
Right. And what you're really doing is you're kind of undercutting the actual value and importance of having this coverage in the first place. Because the thing is, you should let them know why this is so important to them, what the urgency is for them to have it at the moment. And then after that, once you've established that, then, act upon it. Just make sure that they understand, look, you're getting this in place so we can get this policy in place, so you don't have to worry about not having this in place anymore. And once you're covered. So that's one way. So the thing is, eliminate that option for the client. Because if you say like, when would you like this to draft? If they have the option, they're gonna be like, I don't know, like 30 days from now. Right. And then for some of them, they don't manage their money to that close of a degree where they know this is exactly what I'm going to have. So they might not be able to draft, and might come back with a returned item, and then you got to go back and try to fix it. It's more work for you later anyway. So the better that you can prepare, the better that you can set the table for the client, the clearer the expectations that you set up front, the easier it is, and then the less chargebacks that you're going to get. And plus, especially with this new change, as far as changes from pay advances on approval versus pay on settle. On settle means this is when they the company drafts the money. If you want to do that, I mean, this will greatly help eliminate a lot of post dates, because you're just not giving people the option. Yeah. So obviously you got to be adaptive. So if I offer that to the client, say like, hey, the first draft's going to come out the next 24 to 48 hours. After that's going to come on the 20th of every month. Are you good with that? I just say that because I don't want to say like, hey, when would you like it to draft? Because if people don't have to pay right now, no one wants to pay right now.
Yeah.
Right? No one will take that option. So then for them, there's going to be like, if they can do it, they'll be like, okay. And if they can't do it, they will let me know at that point. They'll be like, oh, you're gonna draft next 24 to 48 hours. Yeah, I won't have money until this day. And then we can pivot and move from there. But I'm not offering additional options for clients to have potentially be confused about, to mess up their own budget about.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're going forward with all of your new business, because look, there's a lot of people to protect out there. There's a lot of families that we can help. So let's do our job and actually help them by not just like signing them up for a policy, but for figuring out a solution that allows them to be able to get covered, get approved, get covered, and continue to maintain this. So the clear that we can communicate that part. And this is also the thing about, sales. I think a lot of times people try to avoid talking about the hard stuff, because I actually just had a hard conversation this morning, right?
Yeah.
And I've never shied away from a hard conversation. I always try to think things through a little bit and try to think, how does this affect this other person? But when it comes to something like insurance, they're going to die. They need this coverage. They need this protection for their family. So the thing is, we can't dance around it. And then when they say like, oh my gosh, it's going to be $300 a month, I just say, yep, it's only $300 a month. It's very matter of factly, because, or whatever their premium is, because the more that we sensationalize it or make it a bigger deal, like it's going to be a bigger deal to them. So, we just got to state a matter of factly, yep, this is what it is. And they're like, we have to pay this every month. Yep. There's no other way around it. So just be straightforward with your client. I mean, be professional about it. And if you can do that, it'll just be clearer for them. They know what to expect every single month. They know when to expect that first draft, and then keep it as simple as possible. Like let's not play games with it and put yourself in a tougher financial position than you need to be by racking up some unnecessary chargebacks that you could have avoided.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions out there for any other questions that we have out there that we can address with you guys or clear up? Nicholas, you got any questions for us?
Yeah, I do.
Perfect.
So at my last stop, they're talking about when you or to make an appointment on, let's say, within the dilation range on at the end of the month, say you're talking about like, at the 30th or 29th, 30th, not every month having that day in correspondence. So you want to autocorrect by moving over that monthly average after the 3 days. Is that right?
Yep. So that's a good question. So I mean, yeah, because of February, pesky February, it only goes up. They only have 28 days. So the thing is, we can't set up the initial draft, or we can't set up a recurring draft on the 30th, 31st, right? Or the 29th, 30th, and 31st. So if it falls on one of those three, you have to push it forward to the first.
Right.
Okay. So because the thing is, they can't set it up to draft because in February they would just skip it. So they have an automatic, draft set up with every carrier. The 29th, the 30th, and 31st is not allowed. So I don't know, that only really applies if you're doing it at the end of the month, or if the client says like, hey, I want to push out my initial draft date. I want to draft. I have money on the 30th, let's say. Can you draft on 30th? You would politely and informatively let them know, I'm sorry, that's actually not an option because of February. And then but we can set it up on the first, or we can set it up on whatever alternative day, if that's all that you got.
Right. Makes sense.
Right. But once again, I mean, going back to my previous point, if you just don't offer it to them, and if today happens to be the 29th, 30th, 31st, I'd be like, all right, so the first one's going to come out next 20 with 24 to 48 hours. After that, it's going to come on the first of every month. Good with you? So that's how you'd handle that situation. Any other questions? Fire away.
Okay.
I have a
Well, I
question.
do have. Yeah,
Actually,
you
no,
go
go
first.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, I've already went, so you can go ahead. It's your turn.
So remember that question. We'll circle back around.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a staff member, so maybe I'm just kind of a filler. But I was gonna ask, what is a moment in your life, and Joanne and Albert, that made you guys believe in life insurance more?
I'll let you start.
That made me believe in life insurance more.
Yeah.
I think, well, for me, I started to believe in life insurance as soon as I got exposed to it while I started working with you. But honestly, I've always seen a value in life insurance since I was exposed to it. But I think like for me, being out there on the field and like running into families or running into people that were just so desperate to find coverage, people that are already like have medical issues or have been diagnosed with like a medical condition where they're just like scattering to see what options are out there for them. So being able to be exposed to like seeing so many different cases. I mean, we ran into this person with Albert out on the field when I barely started. I remember she was like young and she had like cancer or something like that. And we were trying to get her coverage before to see what she would qualify for at that point, So, and then at the time we were working for a company that basically couldn't even cover her anyway, because it was just wasn't going to cover her. But yeah, I think for me, seeing the real need in people, whether it be they're sick, whether it be they just want to be able to provide their family with a solution when they're not there. We also run into a lot of just different situations. But for me, I just think in general, I believe in life insurance because I know that it's a product that everybody needs. Death is coming for everyone. Nobody's going to escape it. We all have our date that we're going to pass away, and we're going to leave our loved ones with, it can either be you're going to leave them with the hardship, with the financial hardship of, you're just dealing with your final expenses. And not only that, but then also dealing with like the financial hardships if you have a family or all of that stuff. So ultimately, for me, I believe in life insurance because, it is something that everybody is going to need. It doesn't even matter what stage you're at, whether you're somebody that is extremely wealthy or not. Life insurance is always a good option, whether it be for your future or your even if it is to like leave a bigger legacy for your child or for your family, it's always a great option for people. So that's why I believe in life insurance. And I believe that all of our agents are doing a difference, whether you guys are barely starting off or you guys aren't. But as soon as you guys start to dial the phone, you guys are going to run into people, and you guys are going to be able to identify that there is a true need for the product out there. And ultimately, just like we were saying, like you guys, we do run into people that give us a hard time in just trying to get them covered. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of people out there that do need the coverage. There's people out there that are asking for you guys to show up for them. They are asking for the guidance and the education to be able to provide a better future for their family. So yeah, that's kind of why I believe in life insurance. And I feel like, in even doing like the contracting or the recruiting of it, like I like doing that stuff. I like being an asset to our agents and helping you guys, be able to prepare your portfolios to better assist all the families that are out there to protect them. So yeah.
Same. She actually no, it's like those students I used to be like, oh, that was my answer. I was going to say the exact same thing. No, but that's a very good point. But I've been in this business going on 16 years now at this point. So the thing is, I've seen a lot in this industry. So when I first started, I think everyone generally recognizes it's an important thing because people are going to die, and if you can leave money behind to put your family in a better off position, or at least not put them in a negative position, it's a good thing. So intellectually we all understand these things. And when I got into it, I didn't want to get into sales. I didn't want to get into life insurance, but I just saw an opportunity, started doing it. And I generally understood why generally it made sense, but it actually didn't hit me until my first client died on me, which was 4 months into the business. So like, went out to go see a client. It was actually, we went to go see his wife actually. And then, she already had some coverage, and, she didn't really need that much, but then her husband actually didn't have any coverage. So then, I was still kind of a trainee. So I had my manager out with me, and we were physically out there, seeing clients. And then my manager actually falls asleep in the middle of my presentation. So, he just starts yawning, and he's like, oh, I'm tired. And I'm like, I remember this presentation very, very distinctly. And then I'm going through the presentation, and then like I hit a dead end with the lady because she was like, oh, I already had the coverage and blah, blah, blah. And my manager wakes up just in the nick of time. And then he's like, all right, well, since you're already covered, what do you have? And then he starts on the husband. And then the husband says like, oh, I don't really need that much. And he's like, but you don't have your funeral arrangements taken care of? He's like, no. So then we offered him a plan. He took it, made sense for him. And then I was like, wow, for me at the time as a new agent, I was like, wow, I didn't realize you can just pivot and help whoever else is in that room. So it added new perspective for me. But also after we signed him up, and I'm excited. My manager was like, yeah, that's your sale, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool, I'm getting paid on this too. Yeah. And then 4 months later, we got a notice from home office, and then it was like a death claim. And I'm like, who's this? And I was like, wait, it's like, so it was like a senior guy, but I was like, 4 months later, he passed away from heart attack. So I called the wife, and I'm like, hey, what happened? She was like, hey, he died in his sleep last night, had a heart attack and passed away. And then my manager, he was like, oh man, it's only been 4 months. He's like, you're getting a chargeback. So, I mean, it was burned into my brain because like, it was just a kind of an odd situation with all these different things going on.
Yeah.
But, I felt good because it really did help the original client. We went to go try to sign up for insurance. We couldn't help her directly, but we were able to help her husband, which in turn actually helped her out.
Yeah.
So then, you realize like whatever you're doing, it's not a very linear thing. It's not specifically supposed to be like, hey, I'm going from here to here and here to here, and that's what it's supposed to be. Your job is to go out there and help as many people as you can. Your job is just do your job. Our job is to help out the clients that requested for the information. If they filled out a lead, they filled out some information for it. Our job is to go out there and get it. And we got to push a little bit harder. We got to stand up for them a little bit more when they initially think they don't need it, because the majority of people will tell you they don't need it because it's just they haven't budgeted in their own head, or they don't recognize the gravity of that situation because they can't see that far ahead yet. We're dealing with this day to day. So, that situation specifically has really helped crystallize in my head why this is so important. And, everything that we're doing, it makes a difference at some point, because the thing is, even if I got to know in that situation, it helped me learn, it helped me understand a little bit more, which will help further my career and help me further my ability to be able to help other people in that same situation. So I don't take anything for granted anymore. And especially the older that I get, I recognize the situation. Also, going back on Joanne's note, we had a lot of fun when we were in the field, because we went to go visit a lot of families, and some of them are not doing that well socioeconomically, right? We went to some pretty rundown homes. And so if you guys are in this business and you guys are watching this, and if you guys ever get to a point where you want to complain and you think this is tough, or you think your life is tough, or you think whatever is tough, I mean, instead of, because we live in an age now where we can do everything virtually and through telesales. However, if you ever feel like complaining and you ever feel like things are difficult, what I would personally recommend to you is go out there and start door knocking and set some appointments to go face to face in person. Get some local leads, go in person. The thing is, by virtue of you doing that, the thing is, you'll realize your life isn't that bad. There's a lot of people out there struggling far more than you are. There's a lot of people that need help a lot more than you do. And no matter what our situation is, we're still in a position to be able to determine our own worth. We can go out there and continue to work. And yeah, there's ups and downs. You're not always going to know what you're doing. You're not always going to complete a successful transaction on every single interaction. But the thing is, if you just continue to put in that work, you're going to get some results. When you get those results, you'll realize how truly grateful we all should be that we have this opportunity. So that's my recommendation. If you guys are struggling, you guys don't feel like you have anything to be grateful for, go out and see some people in person. You will be very grateful. And then if you can help them, maybe you feel great about yourself, right? Didn't it feel great every time we were able to help people out?
It did.
Yeah. Money aside, I mean, money's great. I'm not going to complain about that. But then as far as just the intrinsic value that you gain by just helping somebody out, like, I made a difference in that person's life. It's nothing like crazy attractive or sexy, or it's not like, hey, I saved this guy from a burning building, but their family will thank me.
Yeah.
Just got to keep that perspective. So long-winded answer aside, hope that covers that. Nicholas, what was your question?
Oh, well, I was just going to add on to what you're saying right there.
Please.
So I think a good example of that would be something that might not have a tangible value right now. But for example, back in 2020, I worked as a census taker going door to door. And a lot of people are, very reserved about doing, all that, getting the data from them and such. And they don't, there's not an contingent value right that moment that they, can obtain from getting their, accurate information in the census. But it's just like, well, look at the long term. Your community is going to have better input from the state and federal government if they have accurate accounting of the population sprawl and like what's the current makeup of your community. So I would definitely say that is a good example of what you were talking about.
No, I think the census thing is a really interesting thing because
they definitely don't get anything in return, right? It's just literally you're giving out your information. I don't know, coming from a person that, you just fill out the census information, you send it out, but you don't really see the benefits of it. So how would you, did you actually have to get them to like fill out the form or?
Fill out the form, yeah. And it wasn't like something, I feel like with this, it gives you more of a runway to personalize the experience with them
Of course.
than census taking, you know.
Well, that's such like a far-fetched esoteric thing for a lot of people to like understand, because for them, like they're just thinking, I don't trust this person, or I don't trust the government, or I don't trust what they're gonna do with my statistics, right?
Right.
So, but you know, that's a really interesting thing when it comes to the census, because your existence literally doesn't even count for this earth if you don't, if you decide not to fill it out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you can't get over that portion. So, and like, and this is the thing about life, you know, everyone wants significance. Everyone wants to be significant in some way or another. Not always in a grandiose, you know,
Yeah.
kind of like bravado kind of way, but just more like you want to be seen, felt, heard, all that stuff, right? So
Everyone wants to leave their mark.
everyone wants to leave their mark,
Just,
but then sometimes because of misunderstanding or because of not understanding, not trusting, you know, the thing is people, their existence doesn't get a chance to actually count.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good analogy in terms of, you know, when it comes to insurance, like people don't want to think about what happens to them because they think so small about themselves. They don't think they make an impact, whether they're alive or whether they're dead. And yeah, and you make a difference to the people around you, the people that you're close to. You can either put them in a better position, or you can put them in a worse position. And that's our job to communicate that to them, our job to help them understand that.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah, and going back to my question now.
Yep.
So yeah, I know it's might not happen very often, but I know that with certain families, they, you know, large extended families, they have this idea. It's like, well, because I was thinking about this when I saw the group me image that what's his name posted about the reasons, you know, not to have healthcare. It's like, my children will support me. Well, that's actually a reason that's more common than you think for large extended families. Certain matriarchs or patriarchs of the family would be like, well, you know, we pulled together these resources, and I'm going to support them, and they're going to support me when my time comes. And I know with my family, on my dad's side, that they pulled resources for certain things, you know, big trips, or this idea of insurance, you know, this, you know, funneling idea. And I feel like with that, in that instance, what you'd have to do is be like, you know, well, it's great that you guys have a solid plan like that in place, but let's consider all these factors going to that. You know, what if, you know, it shells off over time, or the family fractures, you know, and you have all these disputes, and, you know, it doesn't become a, you know, an even kill kind of operation where everyone's paying into it and there is actual, you know, social apparatus support. So in that case, you know, hey, you want this as an actual guaranteed permanent safety net for when that plan falls apart.
Yep. Did you have a question tied into that, or was that more just a statement?
Well, I was just asking, I guess that was kind of like their bond kind of question. How would you, like, starting out, let's say in this scenario, how would you go about addressing that kind of thing? I mean, especially, let's say if it's a well-established family, and let's say it's, you know, a veteran, you know.
Well, yeah, I think that's a very common misnomer in the insurance industry. I think for a lot of clients in particular, they just think like, yeah, I'd rather not get insurance. I'd rather be self-insured. I'd rather put this money aside and actually save for this, or it's my kids' responsibility, or it's my spouse's responsibility. I did all this all these years. When in reality, they're just trying to be very glib. They're just trying to do anything they can to avoid talking about it and thinking about it, because they know the responsibility ultimately should fall on them. So they're just trying to find a way to derelict this duty, right? But I think that's the huge misnomer, because a lot of times people think like, oh, well, I'm just going to get rich and I don't need to get life insurance. But the reality is, most rich people and people that are actually financially savvy, they get insurance, because why would they not get insurance?
Yeah, like
They want to be able to transfer this wealth to their family. They want to be able to pay off their estate taxes. They want to be able to leave extra money behind in case they kick the bucket early. Like, there's so many different reasons why people do it. But the reason why these people at these certain socioeconomic levels continue to stay at that level is because they're taking on bad advice. They're taking on bad advice from people in the same situation as them, that are just the smart guy, the guy that knows everything. When in reality, it's like, you should look at the person whose financial position you would like to be in and follow what that person's doing. But those people, they generally don't associate with those people. They just stick within their own socioeconomic circles. So then they continue to get bad advice. And then they start to like create this echo chamber, and they continue to reinforce the bad ideas that they initially had. So this is our job as insurance agents, and to go out there to actually inform our agents and let them know, hey, there's plenty of other solutions out there for you. Just because so-and-so says it doesn't mean that it's actually correct. Ask yourself, do you want to be in that person's position financially? So that'd be the first thing. I'll just let them know, like, where are you getting this information from?
Yeah, well, I know that that's a huge part of the problem with, well, with the VA and veterans in particular. They have a very entrenched kind of view of what their own, what the government's going to pay out, and then you show them on the sites like, well, this is actually what you're, owed. And if in the case, like, they're, I don't know, like, Sergeant Dan about it, like, oh, that's what my friends tell me, this
Right.
government's, covering me high end or noon.
Yeah.
And then in that instance, it's just like, well, unless if you have like, a lifeline, so to speak, to, branch out into another veteran to show them, hey, that's not entirely the case, then, even if you show them on the website, they're not going to believe you. So.
Yeah, no, I think the veterans is actually a very, very good specific point about what we're talking about here, because it's been a while since I've actually looked at it, but I think burial benefits like $300. It's $600 if you're active military. And so that's just the burial benefit. You get a plot of land, and you get a place to be buried if you choose to be buried there. But the thing is, $300 or $600. It's not very much money. Most of these guys don't want to think about it, so they just be like, yeah, no, I heard from a buddy that that was in the military that I have full burial taken care of. But it's like, okay, but what else do you want to leave behind for your family? Like, what else? That's not going to take care of everything else. So I think that's a perfect example of just going to show these people are just being very glib so they can avoid talking about it, avoid thinking about it. Where in reality, like, this is our job, and we have all these resources available, so we can specifically look up in the case of a veteran, hey, read this. This is actually what it is. You're not covered for as much as you think. And, it's my job to help you understand this. And, that's great that you have that in place already, but what about the other stuff? So this is my job. I'm supposed to show you this other stuff. What you do with it is up to you. Right. And I think that's the best position for us to take. The thing is, it can't be like, I need you to take this for me. It's just my job is to provide you with the information. I'm trying to put you in a better position. I'm trying to identify the different problems that may come up for you. Here are the solutions. Here's what I can try to do to help you get qualified.
And what's your position specifically on the way that Ryan Reynolds presents that? He says that sometimes you have to approach them like a doctor. Like, sometimes they're going to fool themselves into believing things that they shouldn't, and you have to question more deeply. But you also have to be persistent, because he has this rebuttal. It's like, hey, Dan, that's great. It's perfect. That's why we're having this call. We're getting to this part, that whole thing. And I think that really, I don't know, it's really hard to find any flaw with that kind of rebuttal, because it just works so well and you can get back into your flow very easily. Yep. So what's your take on that?
No, I agree. And Ryan does great. So, I mean, I think that's specific. That's the mindset that we need to approach it with, instead, because most times too many agents are just very too customer servicey and just thinking the customer is always right. But the thing is, they're not, because if it was up to them, they don't want to pay a thing and they don't want to get insurance. So they're not right. And I'm saying this because if a client doesn't get a policy, everybody loses, right? The insurance carrier doesn't have anything on the books. You didn't get paid your commission. Their family doesn't have coverage when they die. Literally everybody lost. So the thing is, we need to just take that approach of a doctor-patient mindset, because we can't be like, hey, what do you want? It should just be like, let me ask some identifying questions. Let's just do some discovery, figure out your situation. Let's identify the problem, and I'm going to provide you with the solution. And I'm going to advocate for you to be able to show you the different plans that you can qualify for. And, and I got to, in that analogy, I'm the doctor in that situation. They're the patient. Like, the doctor doesn't go into a situation that says like, hey, would you like me to give you some medicine? Or would you like me to perform the surgery on you? It's like, no, this is what you need, because if you don't do this, here's what's going to happen. and then your family's gonna be in this situation, or so on and so forth, and whatever. So yeah, I think that's a really good analogy.
Well, I have a personal question. Okay, so
Sure.
when you started, you not see I know there is a kind of a thin line, like you want to personalize the experience with them. But again, you don't want to be too customer servicey, as you stated. But wouldn't you see that a key icebreaker with that to be like, oh, well, I've noticed that you're from this city. I've went through here. Yeah, this is a great experience with this drive. Wouldn't you say going to this restaurant, like just opening with some key anecdotal that would add, in a narrative sense, be a hook to personalize it is like a valid resource? Because I'm kind of surprised, because all the people that have studied that have been doing this, I don't think that they've really used the author's strategy, just so to speak, to paint the picture with a powerful anecdote. Would you agree that that's a good way to go to open with a script?
Well, I think you just got to be consistent in your tone all the way across, because the thing is, you can't oscillate between being their friend and then trying to be a professional. So you got to figure out your voice. I mean, and this comes with experience, obviously. I think it's very healthy to, if you want to take the all business approach, which everything actually works a little bit. So the thing is, if you just want to take a business approach and you don't want no small talk, no rapport building, just get straight into it, it works. If you want to be a little bit more customer servicey and kind of establish a little bit more rapport, that could work too. The only thing is it'll make it a little bit more difficult on the back end when you're trying to close, because now they're your friend and now they think they can call you back anytime, and now it loses some of that urgency. Now the thing is, it doesn't mean you can't have a little bit of a balance. The thing is, if you're just very direct, straightforward with it, you're a professional, you're going through asking your discovery questions and doing the financial inventory, getting the business. If certain things come up along the way, the thing is, they see you as just another voice on the other end of the line. If you come across certain situations in which you can relate with them, be like, oh, you live here? Oh, hey, I actually went to school there. Or I actually had a cousin that lived there. Or actually, have you heard of this restaurant? The thing is, now you're humanizing yourself, and then you're basically getting on the same side. You're metaphorically putting your arm around them, and the thing is, like, now they can actually connect with you a little bit like a human being. And well-timed positioning like that throughout certain parts of the presentation, it's great. It actually does help, but you just can't just do it the entire time and just thinking like, hey, I'm gonna schmooze this person to the point where they like me so much they're gonna buy, because that's not a good approach. So balance, just finding the right strategic moments in which you can interject these things if they organically come up. I think it's actually a really great thing, and I personally do that myself.
Yeah, I was totally gonna go with what you said. Yeah, because I think Al pointed out a really good point where, like, even when you're in a conversation with somebody, other things are gonna arise where commonalities are just gonna happen. So I think that organically those commonalities will come up, and that'll be like your chance to be able to find a common ground with them or find some similarities where that will, kind of be like a little bit of the conversation, but you're going to continue to push through like the questions and that side of things. But I don't think that you should start off with that. I think it's going to organically happen with you in the conversations that you have with your clients. And then people can also read that stuff. I feel like when you are trying to just be really likable to them, like, people can read through that, and they don't really take you as serious, because just like Albert said, you are giving them an opportunity to just be themselves and be mean to you in a sense, So,
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Well, great question.
All right, guys. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We're already past the time. So thanks so much for joining us, Nick, and everybody else on our live Q&A.
Yep. Thank you, Joanne. John will be back next week, so you won't be stuck with me. So appreciate you guys hopping on. See you guys next week.